Alright guys, I'm continuing where I just left off a minute ago. Okay, so continuing, just going in and adding the dark areas. This area has to get really dark. As you can see, it's almost like, it's a very dark lighting. So this whole area is going to be really much darker than I have it right now. So the skin, even the skin behind his hair here, all needs to kind of get darker. And I know this kind of, one thing I was told as an artist that has kind of helped me a lot is that all artworks kind of go through an ugly stage. Okay, so you might look at it and go, oh gosh, I don't like the way this looks, or this really looks bad. And it's okay, because it's going to get better. Like, the more that you work with it and the more you add to it, it's going to get better. Even if right now you don't like the way it looks, as you go, it's going to get, you're going to figure out what was wrong, or, if you need someone else to look at it, a lot of times having another set of eyes looking over at what you're drawing can help a lot of the times. So if it's something that you're working on in class, either having one of your peers look at what you're doing and give their opinion, or the teacher, it's, they might be able to see something that you're missing, and then that might be the thing that changes the artwork from you not liking the way it looks to loving it. So, but I noticed that all my drawings, at some point, I usually am like looking at it thinking, oh gosh, should I start over? He's got some really thick eyebrows here. It's kind of a different shape too. I think it goes out further. But yeah, so don't feel dejected or upset if you don't like the way your artwork looks at first. This happens. I just realized that his eyebrow needs to come down here. It happens to all of us. It's very rare that I create an artwork that I like from start to finish. There's at least one point during the artwork where I'm just not happy with it. Right now I'm not happy with his eyebrow, but it's okay. I'll get it to work. I just have to look at these spaces here, and I can tell that the space here is a little bit bigger than it is over here, and the space here is a little bit bigger still. I think the shading's also going to help make it blend in a little bit more. So as I get like this line right here, as I get that drawn in, and the shading over here, we've gotten so much rain here in North Carolina over the past couple weeks that I feel like my whole backyard is like a swamp now. So at night, all I can hear is the frogs chirping. And like, I don't know if it's loud enough that y'all can hear it in the video, but it is loud. Of course, I say that and they stop making the noise. Alright, and like I said, you just kind of keep going back and forth. So this area right here where the nostril is, that needs to get a little bit darker here. Right here needs to get a little darker. Even this part of his nose. The worst part is it needs to match this side. So you see how dark that is. You know, that's pretty dark. So even though right now that doesn't seem right, you have to get it up to that darkness. If you don't, it's never gonna look right. I'm gonna turn it to the side real quick because I'm gonna try to get some even tones in here just to get some value, get it a little bit darker. If I force some value on the whole thing, then I can go back in and get darker in the really dark areas. But I'm trying to kind of force myself to go darker so that I can try to get this side up to the appropriate value. It's getting there. It's getting closer. See how that's coming? It's still a lot lighter, but it's getting there. Of course, I had to pick a really dark photograph, didn't I? Definitely does not make my job easy here. Alright. So, let's see. How about his chin area, too? We really need to get that darkened up. Not quite as much, but it's going to need to get darker than it is. Okay, and in here, too. Give it a all over value right now, just so that I can go in and make the dark areas darker and not spend so much time on this really light value that I know isn't right. Now, you notice though, I'm not scribbling, I'm keeping it smooth. I'm trying to go in pretty much the same direction because that's the other thing. You don't want to have it really scribbly because then it's not going to smooth out. And it's going to look really bad. So make sure that you're not just scribbling a dark value over the whole thing, especially if it's a person of color. Just because they're a person of color doesn't mean they're not going to have light areas or, you know, areas that can have reflection and things. You don't want to just scribble the whole thing dark just because it's a dark-skinned individual. That's not going to make it look accurate at all. Not that Andrew Draymond he's not dark-skinned, but I'm just saying, like, even if the person that you chose to do your portrait of, if they're a darker-skinned individual, then you still aren't going to just shade in the whole thing dark. I'm giving myself a base value because I know that this is a darker portrait, and I wanted to get closer to this value. Alright, so that does help me a lot. I think I may need to lighten up in here, so I may have to kind of go in with my eraser. And that's okay. A little bit of erasing, a little bit more smudging. Hopefully I don't ruin the paper because this is not drawing quality paper, really. It's computer paper. But, alright, so now let's go in and start giving it those darker tones. Okay, I'm going to put some of the details back in the ear. the background's going to be darker, so that is going to help a little bit. Because that'll help make the ear pop a little bit, since there's going to be such a black background behind it. Alright, let's work on the eye a little bit. Give him his eyelashes back. Alright, let's work on this a little. He's got a little bit of a highlight right here that I want to keep white. He's got a strange reflection going on in his eye around the pupil. So I'm going to color his pupil in dark, but he definitely has this odd looking reflection going around the pupil. I was a little bit concerned when I picked this picture that this was going to make it look fake, but he also has a very mottled looking eye. Like, it's not one solid color. It's kind of very dark around the outside edge. I just realized, like, it just doesn't look. Let's just get some shading in there. Hopefully that's going to make it look better. Not a fan. Not a fan. Alright, let's see if I can pull some of these shades back out with my eraser. I just feel like the pupil's off center. Alright, I'm going to try this eye again. See if I can get it better the second time. Alright, so okay. Alright. Give him some of these striations. Okay. Mm. I usually do eyes so much better. Alright, so now I'm working on the sclera. That's the white part of his eye. And even though the color is white, because he is in mostly shadow, the only part that's going to really stay like completely white is that little highlighted area that I marked out earlier. Okay, and right in here we need shadow. I'm going to keep this little spot white. Alright, this is dark. Um, okay, let's darken up this area again. Should be more straight through here. Notice I'm trying really hard not to make any harsh lines. You don't want to have outlines. You don't want it to have it look like his lip is outlined. Okay, so in order to create this line for his lower lip, I've created the shading that's below his lip. Okay, so it's darker and then it's lighter here, but there's still shading. And I don't want it to stay white right there, so sometimes I have to lift up. His lower lip has a lot of lines on it, so you can create kind of like the base shading and then go back in and add some of those lines back in. The side, like the corners of the mouth, are going to be a little bit darker than the middle, because like if you think about it, it's farther away from the viewer, so it's more in shadow. Okay, gonna start making some of his facial hair. My pencil should probably be a little bit sharper for this part. Now this area right in here is dark. There may be some areas that are a little bit light, but for the most part it's really dark in here. But I'm going to try to keep that kind of texture about it, because if I just go in and shade the whole thing, it's not going to have that texture of his hair. And I don't want to lose that, because then it's just going to look really flat. So if you happen to choose somebody that has facial hair, you're going to need to look at like what the facial hair looks like. Is it curly? Is it straight? You know, because you don't want to just shade it in all one color. It's going to look weird that way. Starting to come together. There's still some areas in here that need to be a lot darker than they are. Okay. Right here needs to get darker. That cheek area again. Also, be careful erasing too much. If you erase too much, you may mess up the pile of the paper. So you'll notice the paper will start kind of getting really rough in that area where you keep erasing. And it's like, it's basically you're destroying the fibers of the paper there. And so it's because of that, it won't accept the pencil the same way anymore if you do that. And also, you know, if you have to erase, it's just, you're kind of out of luck. Alright, so I gotta put those lines back in that I said there are, like right here. And then the one up here. And this kind of goes across to here. I don't like how dark this got in here. So I may have to kind of go in and lighten up some. If I had, there's a certain type of eraser called an elephant ear eraser. I don't think I have any at home. Or a kneaded, or not elephant ear. I'm sorry, that is completely wrong. Now I'm combining. I'm combining ceramics with. So no, not elephant ear. Kneaded eraser. I don't know where I got that. It's been a long night. Oh my goodness. So anyway, an elephant ear sponge is something that you use when you're doing pottery. A kneaded eraser is something that you use when you're doing drawing, and it's almost like a self-cleaning eraser, and it's really great. You know, just like the name, you kind of knead it and like twist it and turn it, and it'll kind of clean itself. And you can just kind of touch it to the paper and the spots where you want to lift up some of the graphite off of it, or the pencil, you know, and it'll do it nice and smoothly and make it pretty nice. Alright, so let's put some of the shading down here in the neck. Get my smudging on. This video is already at 31 minutes. And as you can see, I am not done because I still have to work on his shirt and the background over here. I'm pretty happy with the way the face is looking, except for obviously he's missing half of his mustache. So let me get that worked in. Now, if you see these shapes here, I'm leaving this spot blank because the way his mustache is, his Cupid's bow pretty much doesn't have any hair on it. That's that dent in the upper lip. His, you can see, doesn't really have. I just realized it kind of goes out farther like this. It's closer to his nose. Okay. Okay. Why is this shaped weird? Like I changed the shape of his nose by accident. Alright. Alright. Okay. So, I need to start getting in the dark shade of his shirt. His shirt is only slightly lighter than what the background is. And you can kind of barely tell there's some kind of collar or something. I know there's a wrinkle in the paper, but there's a little bit of a almost collar type thing here, but you can barely see it. So I'm just going to kind of put a hint of that in there, and pretty much the whole thing's going to be shaded dark. It's got to be darker than his face. And this is the part where the camera's probably not going to pick it up really well, because from all the shading that I'm going to have to do, it's going to get really shiny. That's the only problem. You almost get a reflection. I'm shading this on top of a sketchbook, even though it's not from my sketchbook, because my surface is not the smoothest. It's a wood table, and just understand that whatever your surface that you're drawing on top of, you may pick up some of that texture. So if I were to be shading this right on top of the wood here, I'd be picking up the little divots in the wood and maybe even possibly the wood grain. So that's why I've got my sketchbook underneath, even though this paper did not come from my sketchbook. Again, I'm using the side of my pencil just to get some nice dark value laid out. I'm only going sideways right here. I try to go all in the same direction about, so that it'll smoothly blend together. And even the way it's looking for me, it's looking like it's really spotty, but it's not. It's kind of hard with the light reflecting off of it the way it is. Alright. some of this going on. Ideally, I would have like a softer wood pencil to get these really dark colors. And if you have a drawing set, so you have more than just a regular number 2 pencil, then feel free to use it. The reason why I'm using this is because I have a feeling that the vast majority of my students do not have fancy drawing sets. So I'm just doing this so that you can see that you can still do a good job even if you just have a number 2 pencil to work with. I'm going to go back and clean up all these edges too, so that we have a nice crisp line at the bottom. But it doesn't look like it's going to accept much more than this. I'm going to try to put a harder surface underneath and see if I can get it to get a little bit darker than it is. Yeah, it is. It's going to go a little bit darker. Sometimes if you are resting on the sketchbook, it may be a little too soft to allow your pencil to get to the darkest value that it can. So on the one hand, it's great because it will keep you from getting the texture from your table or what have you. On the other hand, you may have the issue that I'm having where it's a little bit too soft to get to the darkest value that I can get my number 2 pencil. Alright, so the other thing that you want to be careful, which I'm trying to be mindful of, is not to slide. Like when you're doing this much dark shading, you want to make sure that you're not going to smudge it across your drawing. I don't want to mess up what I've done with his face. I know I'm getting a lot of glare going on right now, but I have some nice stuff going on here, and I don't want to mess that up when it comes to, now that I've got his shirt kind of shaded in. I need to do the background. Without the background, it's not complete because, this needs to be a dark background so that the only thing that's really popping out of it is his face and neck. So I'm going to carefully start going up right up against his head. I do not want to mess it up, so I'm going to create this dark line around it so that basically that's going to be my dark value. So for the background, basically I'm going to shade it right up onto the shoulder since his shoulder actually blends into the background anyway. I'm going to shade it right up onto the shoulder. Really the only reason why I did that outline around him is so that when I do get up to Uhtred, I don't, go over the line. I'm just turning it upside down to give myself another view so I can see how it's coming. I'm not trying to give the background a texture really. I'm just trying to get it dark. So it's getting a little bit streaky, but that's just from trying to make it really dark, I guess. When I get it right up against him, I want to be really careful. I don't want to like lose part of his ear or part of his head because of being careless. So, be mindful of your background when you're choosing your portrait to do. Understand that if it's got a black background, you're going to be doing a lot of shading. Also, if there's other things going on in the background, you're going to have to draw them. So, you want to try to choose a portrait, a professional portrait, so that you don't have to draw a lot of busy things going on in the background. You don't want the half of your portrait that's the photograph to have a lot of things going on in the background, and then the half that's your drawing side be blank, because then it looks like you kind of gave up, copped it out, and just, took the easy way out and didn't do the whole drawing. So you don't want that. Trying to go in and darken up the lighter areas of this background, because it is pretty streaky. It's really light right here by his ear. Sometimes, like what I did, turning the paper around a little to get another point of view will help you see some of the areas that you need to darken up if you have an issue like this where you have a big dark background. There we go, that's getting a lot darker. That's good. Okay. Let's turn it back around and take a look at it. I know you're getting a glare. Let me try to angle it. Oh, that looks weird because it changes. So you're getting a glare off of this side like I said you would. But you can still see how it's really bringing him out of the background, which is good. Just going to go in here and add this a little bit darker right here. Alright, so I think we're pretty much done. I'll take a picture of it and put that on your canvas so that you can see, you know, it's pretty good. Alright, any questions, send me an email. The only place that I would say could probably have gotten darker was definitely his neck, because you can tell right here, this is a very big difference. So I'll probably go in and work on this just a little bit more to get his neck to the proper darkness, because this definitely is not it. But other than that, I think we're pretty much done. But yeah, neck definitely has to get darker. Still a little bit on the light side. It's funny how when you're doing it, you don't realize how dark one side is. I'll go and clean that edge up in a minute. Okay, that's definitely a lot better. Alright, good. I'm pretty happy with that, the way that looks. It looks a lot lighter on the camera than it does in person. Clean up my edge. Alright, that's much better. Alright, so I think he's pretty much done. I'm going to put it under like a heavy book or something so it stays flat. Because all that coloring has made it curl a little bit. So I'll be taking a picture showing this side, my drawing, and then the other photo, so that you get all three together. Let me see if I turn off. Yeah, there you go. Now you can really see it. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I know it's a little bit dark right here, but so hopefully that helps. If you guys have any questions, I'm just trying to zoom in so you can see a little bit the detail. But any questions, send me an email. I look really forward to seeing what you guys come up with.